Hi everybody, I'm Paula Rojas, Managing Director of Synergy Resource Capital, and welcome to another webinar of our series where we bring you promising startups and small caps in natural resources and technology. These companies are seeking to raise awareness, reach global markets, and ultimately grow their footprint and networks. The format includes a short presentation, a discussion about the firm's space with additional questions at the end. Let's get started. Feedbackly is a company offering an all-in-one CX tool that automatically measures, analyzes, and takes action on your customer feedback throughout the customer journey to attract and retain more customers. Feedbackly also offers the support, success, and consulting services around customer experience required to build a successful CX program. And they are the only company in the market that measures real emotions via EVI, or Emotional Value Index, a methodology to drive real growth. To tell us all about Feedbackly and where they intend to go, we have Jaakko Mannisto, CEO. Jaakko is a startup entrepreneur, founder, and award-winning customer experience professional at Feedbackly, as well as the founder of the biggest entrepreneurial digital community in Finland, Ritadio. Jaakko has written several books in customer experience, and he's one of the founders of the CX Academy and CX Forum, a non-profit community for CX professionals. When not working, he enjoys coaching golf, sailing, smoothies, and triathlon. When he's not able to find either wind or customers, his time goes mostly writing and building wooden surfboards. Without further ado, let's get started with the presentation. Jaakko?
All right. Thank you, Paula, very much. And it's been my pleasure being here. And thank you for the introductions. So today we're going to talk about on how to create the happiest customers in the world. And beyond that, what actually drives growth for companies today beyond the customer satisfaction and how to actually do that in practice. I've built the presentation in a couple of pieces, kind of like starting from why we do what we do, how we drive that growth, and then how we support that with our technology. So I would say that our story starts from the fact that customer feedback essentially is really old, and I just love this one example of Babylonian tablet from ancient Sumerian. That is one of the oldest recorded document of customer complaint, or as in customer feedback. And from this time, about 4,000 years ago, we've come a long way. But what we noticed is that we've taken a sprint since the 70s and 80s, and prior to that, we've basically been using the method of the same clay template. From there, it turned out to be paper in between. But when we're really trying to understand what drives the motivation for our customers to buy and make that buying and purchasing decision, we have actually been stuck pretty much on the 70s and 90s, as we can notice that customer satisfaction, NPS, and customer effort score have not been following the change and transfer in the market. Now, this change starting from products towards experiences nowadays has changed a lot of things on the market. So we're not talking about unit sales anymore, or we're not talking about unit margins rather than technologies. We're talking about creating deep relationships, and we're talking about creating a lot, more experiences and really trying to understand those feelings instead of selling products, solving needs. Now, what that creates for us as a business is that it creates us more and more complex customer journeys in online and offline, or starting from brick and mortar to going finding that product from drop ship point, or then going and reviewing that product online to a review service. So all of that bound to one experience. So that has changed a lot, and that has been that change has been very quick, and it has been through about 20 years now. And during that time, basically everything has changed. And I just love this example of a coffee shop that pretty much everybody knows. Just looking at the signature on the mug. So the question is, like, why are we willing to pay about 100 times in money and value for just just a coffee cup, what we could get essentially even from the raw material of the coffee that I can grow myself, and so forth and so forth. So that is a very good question, and it all bounds to one thing. And it all bounds to the experience, and what kind of experience they've created with all the elements inside the cup, the product, the service, and everything around it. And that's the key for the person to make that buying decision, and that's the key to making that purchasing decision. So of course we want to understand that how that emotion drives that buying decision. Why isn't the person starting to farm the coffee bean instead of going to and getting that coffee cup where your name is spelled incorrectly? And of course here we need to understand that we're not talking about just satisfaction, because satisfaction alone is not the driver of business growth, but essentially that happiness beyond is the key factor which drives us to make those purchasing decisions. So how these things actually occur through the customer journey. And what we noticed that this change through COVID actually hasn't changed at all. So the change only accelerates itself, and people are more and more actually aware of the fact that they're willing to buy and they're willing to pay more if they're getting experiences that are fitted to their needs. And for many companies, such as this one, which was a educational company who was basically built their business, millions of dollars of business around the fact that they were educating people face to face. They had to turn all their entire business online overnight. And by that point, they've been just, testing on that shift. And now it creates a huge challenge for them, but as well as opportunities. And now they're basically stronger than ever because of this change accelerating. Now, because this has changed our purchase behavior for good. We're not going to go back to the time where we were before. We're not going to go back to the time where we were 10 years ago from the experience and purchasing and decision-making behavior. So the world has changed since 1990s, 1980s, but companies in general, about 90% of all of them, are still measuring things and still trying to understand their customers like it was 1990s. And it sounds crazy, but still many of those systems and methodologies are put in place during that time or even earlier. And most of us can't even remember how businesses were going for in 1990s. And rather alone, nobody would go back there because all the services are so much better and different. So most of the companies are measuring that 10% that is actually, only impacting their CX and customer experience and bottom line. So we're kind of like missing that 90%. So at Feedbackly, we basically set ourselves to ask that, what are the companies that are actually winning right now? What are the companies that are growing right now and been growing for the past 10 years? What have they done? What are the winners doing on the field of customer experience? And how could we as a company, as a technology company, as a company for high knowledge in CX, how could we support them to be even better? And how could we help more companies to become those customer experience winners on the area. So what we actually did is that we conducted a research with more than 500 top performers in CX globally, and put it down into an easy to understand report to see what are the top performers actually doing on the field of customer experience to win on the market, to be better than their competition, to be ahead of their competition once, and the second and the third time, and every time when they're actually competing on a base of experience. Now, as mentioned, we conducted a global study, and most of it for actually those people who are deciding on the main basics of the customer experience and how to do that. So what we learned there, we learned three things on this study. And the first thing, and one of the most important, is that the winners and all of those companies had one thing in common, basically. All of them tried to understand the real emotions and drivers of their customers. Now, all of them were struggling to understand customer satisfaction score, customer effort score, or NPS, because they thought that it doesn't cover enough parts of the customer journey. And they have understood that actually emotions drive more purchase behavior than, for example, competing with price. So they can, charge higher margins than their competition and be more profitable. And they've also understand that actually emotions are the factor that makes you remember, makes things last. And they do understand that it's not even psychological, but it's actually biological. When we feel something, certain chemicals are triggered in our brain that helps us to remember those things. And they've understood that the emotions are really the next level of the customer experience and the customer experience market globally. And there's no basically denying it. So why wouldn't we actually follow that, those winners that are driving the market when they're trying to understand their customers' emotions? So now we can see, for the first time when we've done this research, we can see the surge of trying to measure and understand emotional experience along that group. And that is really thrilling to see from a customer experience professional perspective. And I would say that this one image is actually something else as an eye opener. We can actually see that when we're talking about fully connected customers who are not just satisfied, but also who has an emotional connection to the brand. It can be a long period of emotional connection. It can be sometimes even negative, but if you have an emotional connection, you are actually 52% higher value than just normally highly satisfied customer. So being a satisfied customer is definitely a good thing, but being emotionally attached to your brand is even better. And secondly, what we learned from there is they always ask the question on how to handle the entire customer journey, how we understand the entire customer journey from the very beginning to an end. And here the view is very different. So many times companies understand customer journey being same thing as customer experience being the same thing as customer service, which is partially true, but essentially it is only a fraction of that customer journey. Because customer journey starts from the phase where actually you're trying to build that awareness in the market, and your customer is seeing your brand and trying to look for your services for the first time. They go all the way to comparing your products or services on your website or seeing you in social media, all the way to the point where they purchase you for the first time, and then continuing to the post-purchase phase where there are other stages as well. So in my, I would say on average, a certain customer journey might have anything between 5 to 7 stages. But one of the biggest and longest one had even 55 different stages from the beginning to an end. So if you just measure or try to design your service for one, you're going to be utterly lost and you're just understanding that one point. And the good question is that your customer doesn't care about your organizational silos. They don't care that if that customer service person is a different person than the salesperson or that marketing person. Everybody would understand that there is always, no one can be 100% aligned through the customer journey, but your customers doesn't care if it's a different person or if you have organizational silos. They're expecting to have a smooth customer experience through the entire customer journey. So that's definitely a big one. And then thirdly, almost each and every one of those, they're trying to quantify the return on investment on your customer experience efforts. So there has been a huge jump. Also, we can see from our customer base, but also from the market, from the survey and this research, that most of the customer experience driven companies who are growing are using another operational data included into their customer feedback and customer experience data. And for the sole reason that is one of the only ways to actually quantifying the return on investment on your customer experience. So this is very, very important third point. So basically learning these three things, we try to understand how can we actually support companies on the market from retail, from traditional retail to digital retail, specialty retail to e-commerce, different brands who don't have the image directly to their customers. For example, selling their products through dealerships or retail stores. So we're helping those brands, covering the entire customer journey, considering the emotions of their customers, and also turning that into measurable sales. So what we created at Feedbackly is that we created a customer experience measurement and management platform that you can manage your entire customer journey. With the help of AI and some scalable tools, we can present everything visually and you can take action on that data also automatically. Then in addition, we noticed that there is also some lack of knowledge on the market. So we set it up a customer experience as a service. So basically we help the companies to build their CX programs, but at the same time also to train them. So we also set it up a CX Academy and set up certifications for that so that companies can actually train their people to be more customer centric. So because if you're customer centric, your data doesn't allow you to take actions. So we've created a holistic view on customer experience so that you can actually get everything on a very scalable way, on a digital way, that you can't get from anywhere else. And that's the entire point. Because if you have to start building these things from pieces on puzzles and fractions from everywhere else, it's going to be a lot to time consuming, and you might even not find all of that from the market. And by this point, I think the number is closing up to about 300 brands right now, and about 150 million data points, and about 2,000 users. So it's fairly little data. And we've been working with the leading industries and leading brands globally by this data and going forward all the time. So from there, jumping a little bit deeper into the product and what we do and what Feedbackly actually does from the product perspective, because this is something that is good to understand. Now, as mentioned, Feedbackly's one of the strong points is that we're giving that all-in-one experience so that you don't have to use anything else, because that integrability and that easiness of use is one of the very big values that we have, because that actually makes it possible to start very quickly. So that's why we tell we're being the most flexible tool for that customer experience management and measurement platform. And what we usually work with is retail, different services, e-commerce, but also some public public entities such as cities, because experiences are fast growing for those as well. So tools and methods and services to attract and retain more customers. It's all in one package. But then how that is actually done. So we have 3 different domains where we basically work with. First is, of course, the pre-purchase. So where we actually try to sell more automatically to the customer. So we, collect that customer feedback throughout the customer journey, and try to take the next action, pushing them towards the sale. Then the second one, of course, is post-purchase, when we're seeing that where we try to retain more customers, react to those business issues, fixing them, alerting you when things go wrong, and driving up to 25% more customer retention when you are taking care of things in a feedback way. And also at the same package, what we've learned is that employee experience is really important. So that employee experience should be addressed as well. So you can use Feedbackly to understand your employees better as well. So you can see how employee experience drives your customer experience. And we have a very good and easy framework to understand what we do. So it's called collect, analyze, and take action. And everything inside Feedbackly works the same way. So first, you would go for and collect from any physical or digital touch point, and we offer you the tools to do that. So you can use all of these Feedbackly standalone, or these can be connected to your services if you have your own email or SMS, or you have your own screens or tablets. We can integrate into those in a matter of minutes. And the point is that we have everything ready so that we don't have to start building heavy grade integrations just to get the data. And what we promise to you is that we collect more data than anyone else, because where we thrive for is that we optimize that data collection. We optimize that data collection in email, websites, SMS, or even tablets, and going beyond. So any kind of surface or any way you reach out to your customer or any touch point you have, we can collect that information for you in an automatic way so that you don't have to worry about that. And one of the reasons for that, especially on a digital environment, is that we have an AI-based behavioral targeting system, what you can easily manage from inside Feedbackly in real time, so that you can actually reach all of your customers in a way that you want to. It's completely code-free and just works with a single press of a button, or you can dive deeper and really start understanding your customers by targeting them by a very complex ways of behavior for example, in your e-commerce, and see why they are not buying or see why they are buying. Then, of course, everything is collected in one place. You can analyze the data and to really unreveal the return on investment in real time. Now, one of the strong points with Feedbackly is that we gather that sales and metadata as well. And what we understood there is that, as mentioned, to really unreveal that ROI is really important. So everything is coming to one place, and above all of this, you can also analyze those customer journeys. Now, this is something that is very, very different approach to anyone else on the market. So most of the companies are kind of trying to reach customers in, like I mentioned, in just one point or touch point. But whereas we bring that data all together, and you can see, for example, here in this image, that your consideration phase is not doing as well as some other phase on your customer journey. So you might dig deeper on why that is. And then, of course, the third part, which is something that most of the companies forget. And the point here is that in an automatic way, you would need to be able to take action on that data. And there are several ways of doing that, starting to, connecting to your CRM, adding that customer experience data to your BI system to be able to report. We have a inside build notifications to you when things go wrong. We're able to close the loop, or even create reviews from those customer feedback that you're actually receiving, because we can thrive those people into your Yelp or into your Trustpilot, for example. Now, this is crucial because without this third phase, you're just stuck kind of like on a phase of trying to analyze and understand, which is essentially really important. But you're losing a lot of opportunities, for example, on your customer journey when you are trying to do pre-sale, like prior when they purchase. Of course, for example, we want to collect the leads, we want to qualify those leads, and Feedbackly does that for you by collecting that customer feedback and then delivers those leads to you in an automatic way. And then when you need to take action on the data, of course, those reports and everything needs to be shared to the right people. So with just a couple of clicks, you can share the customer reports that is needed to the people who is needed. And we can do unlimited amount of customer reports in just one click. And that's one of the other strong points of Feedbackly. And then, of course, because nowadays we're looking into an open-ended data, we can also analyze deeper with a category-leading qualitative and text analytics solution inside Feedbackly. So you don't have to start looking for that either on any other provider on the market. And as mentioned, I just love this image because, or this slide, because because just integrating easily with everything is the key for driving that easiness of getting to use any software going forward. And then maybe from the product perspective, really one of the most important and differentiator also for Feedbackly is the EVI, which stands for Emotional Value Index, which is the only KPI on the market that actually helps you to understand the real emotions behind the customer experience and your customer. So customer satisfaction, customer effort score, or NPS are tools and metrics that are all helpful, but are not able to help you understand your entire customer journey. But EVI is. So EVI is a little bit different also from the methodology perspective. And one of the very strong points with Feedbackly is that we are the only ones who are allowed to offer this because it is on our development, and I've developed basically the theory behind and the way of measuring. And we've already seen that this wave of emotional experiences is moving forward and is super interesting, and we're getting connected all the time to implement new customers with EVI methodology and EVI structured customer feedback collection and promotion on that sense. So kind of like wrapping up a little bit, why the winners in CX, why they choose us, why we want to work with those, is that we are very much customer journey driven, and we are very much considering the emotional experience of those companies and those customers, said EVI or Emotional Value Index. And those are the things that no one else from a technological perspective can offer. And then when we're looking into integratability and other companies on the market, the bigger companies in bulkier systems or other B2B enterprise SaaS, is that it takes a long time to go for and integrate. But with Feedbackly, we can get started in 15 minutes, and we can actually integrate very easily with everything you need. In addition to that metadata. So that metadata, plays an important role so that we can do that, quantifying that ROI for your CX efforts to see what kind of impact they have into it. And then what I usually, promise to all of our customers and partners is that if I don't have the answer, I'm going to look that answer for you. And the reason for that is that we believe that we are kind of like forerunners on the market, and we're working every day to keep ourselves updated and running ahead of the market. And our solutions are always a living proof for that fact that we are kind of like driving that market. So our customer success and industry knowledge is top of the game, and that's one of the reasons why our customers love to work with us, because we try to help them with their CX efforts. And we can see, big things happening on our customer base, and we can see big things, results from that end. And as mentioned, been working with multiple customers on the market, and we really want to be that company that changes the scene on how companies look their customers and really put that customer experience in the heart of the strategies of those companies. And that's basically what Feedbackly is for, and what how we're trying to change the world.
That was it was very interesting to me to see the evolution, because we haven't spoken in a few months, and I can see that there's a lot of stuff that you've distilled, even in the way it's communicated, which is, always, it's so important, because you are trying to get clients and also obviously investors to listen to you. So that's very interesting to see. And I had so just as a side note, I think that there's a lot more applications for something like this. So my brain is just going like, oh, we could use for this, like not even so, because the framework that you're setting up for this customer experience tool and the company, I think it has a lot of other applications that we can talk about later.
And I think that I think one of the strong points of Feedbackly, but also I'm going to say a weak point, is that we could basically help any company. We could basically go for their millions of different applications, what we could do, but the question is that which one we go for first. And where we kind of see and where we can find the most interesting partners to work with. For example, pushing that EVI forward. So if we can find another larger customer experience company who would like to implement EVI, that there's a lot of them already, that could be a good kind of like a next step, for example, on that. But again, the opportunities are endless in a sense for implementing the framework.
So if we go a little bit more general in terms of strategy and that sort of thing, what are the short and long-term plans? Are you thinking that in terms of the company, you're gonna remain private for some time, and then you're gonna maybe look into a listing? How are you thinking about that?
Sure. Of course, for short term, we still have kind of like when I always want to say that we're on a good start, but there's a lot of growing to do still, and kind of a lot of implementing to do, and a lot of clientele to win. And I feel that the first steps, of course, are very much on that base, and looking for still a bit more private investors, who are willing to join our team, and kind of like who sees the world the same way as we do on saying that the customer is the most important particle of your business. And going from there, building that growth first a little bit. And then I do see kind of like, going public as an option for taking that bigger step along the way. But of course, at this point, I would say that our focus needs to be on our own customer again, on how we can help them, how we can bring in more clients in, and really kind of like focusing on how we can ramp up that sales strategy to be even more scalable. And what we're doing now actually is that we are ramping up our partner network, which seems looks pretty good. We're starting to have very good and prominent partners, but of course we want to keep doing that, because that's one of the best ways of reaching out to new clients, through partners and through resellers. So that's one of the short-term things to look for.
So just as a segue between that comment and what we were talking about, you have operations in multiple countries, and I think we didn't talk about that, but I think it's really important, because you mentioned partners, and obviously you're a company that is based in Finland, but for a startup, you're targeting a lot of different countries, and I think it's pretty impressive that what you've done. So if you can talk a little bit about those partnerships and where those are sort of focused on.
Sure. Happy to. So one of the main strategies for us is that we don't want to restrict ourselves on the fact that where we are based, and I don't see that as being a kind of like a strong point or weak point, but because in globalized world we can basically be anywhere. I'm sitting here in Finland right now, and we're having this conversation. So I don't see that as a kind of like as a big deal myself. So we have clientele and operations in Finland, in Nordics, and of course along Europe. Then also we're starting the process in Australia as well. Any English speaking market is basically something that we can do very easily. But one of the main points and how can I say, in today's business, I would say also a differentiator is that we also have a strong presence in Spanish speaking markets. So South America and Latin America in general is just a strong point for us. So what we usually do is that, of course, we're looking for customers and opportunities and leads ourselves. And when we get to close a deal, we then usually start working with some of our partners. Looking for CX consultancies or other technological approach, like let's say a payment processor. So because they can offer our services to their customers as well. So we usually then work with our partners together in parallel to serve that market. So I think that's one of the best ways to kind of like go forward. It takes a little bit more time in the beginning building those relationships, but in the end, it helps us to keep ourselves on check so that we don't have to invest an office to every market in globally. So, the start is a little bit slower, but in the end, when we actually get that network ongoing and working, which we already see that it's working, from there on, we can, move forward quicker. But the point is that we do our own sales, we do our own marketing, and then we work with our partners to accelerate that basically and support the customer.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said, that it doesn't matter where you're based. But it does matter where you can reach, and so that's why it's pretty good. It's sort of a method that we've used as well. So instead of just setting larger teams, you can partner up with people that are local, that understand how things operate, have their own networks, and can sort of guide you through the getting into a new region. So that's really, really good. As a private company, you mentioned a little bit about you mentioned investors. So as a private company, we can't obviously talk about any particular group probably in detail, but if you can say, talk about how tightly held the company still is, and what type of investors have joined you so far.
Yeah. Sure. Great. So I think we have kind of three types of, if we can, roughly say three types of investors inside the company. Of course, the founders and the people working in the company. And I always say that it's really important that the people who work with us are also owners through option programs, because that still, continues to motivate them. Of course, myself and my co-founder, we're still major shareholders. That's for sure. Then the second part is, of course, would say an early stage, like early stage, financial investors or small VC funds that have already come on board. And then the third part is a more of like an industry investment, so that we can actually build this global network to work with, and that's a very good example on the synergies that we can actually get by partnering with these certain companies. So mainly those three type of investors at this point. We don't have a huge amount, but which of course helps us along the journey so that we can still widen that base, and we're kind of like open to discussions throughout the markets, especially on, I would say at this point from US or Latin America, because the point is that we want to stronger our foothold on those markets. So that's definitely something that we're looking to do.
Okay. Now, I would like to ask a bit, if you can talk a bit about the management team. So we've heard a little bit
Sure.
about you. Can you sort of put some color into, I know there were two of you. So when you started, there was you and another co-founder, but you have a bigger team now, obviously. If you can talk a little bit about the
Sure.
management team.
Sure, happy to. So my fellow co-founder, Jonas, he's mainly working through the board and as an advisor at this point with the company, which is great to have him on board as he is how to say, he's the technical founder from us. But from our management team perspective, we have three-person team. We're still fairly small, but we don't want to kind of like blow that out before going further. But essentially, of course, me, I'm mostly taking care of the general things, administration, finances, but also the CX approach to everything. So it's kind of like my mate and my vision. But beyond that, we have Christian, who is one of the excuse me, who is one of the I would say most accomplished customer success manager in Finland. He has been working in banking, retail, and many startup companies prior. So he's looking after our customer base and how that customer base actually reflects to our product. And so he's kind of like the sounding board between the customer and our company and the product. And then we have Troy, who is originally from New York. And he's a very seasoned, acquisition or head of acquisition for us, but very seasoned sales guy and very seasoned sales manager. So we kind of like have a good mixture, I would say, in the management team of kind of like a tech and customer approach to sales approach, and then kind of like I'm binding that together with the CX knowledge all together. And then of course we have an active board where we have an active board of director. Jonas has mentioned, and then the rest of the team supporting that effort. Okay,
perfect. You talked about your report, this customer experience report that you put together, sure, which I think is a brilliant tool to not only summarize and sort of distill the information that you're trying to gather from your clients for your use, but you're also using this tool to get more notoriety. So you can use it as a marketing tool in itself, and I think it's a really clever and useful way that that people do these days. And you have to put some effort into doing it, but you're using it to learn about what you're doing, and at the same time it's a promotional tool. So I think it's really good that you've done this. And I know you did a webinar where you sort of went through the information, and that video is online, right? That's the one that I saw. So people can we can put the link to that video. And that's if people want to get that report, what do they need to do?
So basically everything is on basically on the landing page. The video is there, and the report can be, everything, told about the report can be found from there. So I'm sure we can share the link for everyone within all the materials. So everything is in one place regarding the report. And if there's anything that anyone wants to ask about that, you can always send an email to me and ask for it. Happy to answer to it as well. But everything is in that one place.
Perfect. Okay, so we wanted to do a little bit, and this is it's sort of a good step to take, because you did talk in the intro. We did talk a little bit about you personally, which I think is really interesting. I love getting to know. Obviously, we know each other, but it's good for people to sort of put some extra color into the people that they see and the companies that they are trying to either invest in or hire as a provider. So if we go back to when you started the company with Jonas.
Mm-hmm.
What was the motivation? How did you were you already working in customer experience for a while, and then you came up with this idea? How was that beginning?
Yeah, sure. It's a very good question. So I think from the very early stages, one of the main reasons for me to get into customer experience in general was the fact that I understood that how poorly this thing is considered inside companies. And I was running another company who had multiple business areas. I think we had like 6 different departments, from e-commerce to brick and mortar to some kiosk chain and so forth and so forth. And I actually tried to understand my customer better, and I tried to purchase this sort of system where I can try to understand the things and the basics, and I couldn't do it at that time. Yeah. So then we started working actually with Jonas and a couple other guys. We started working within customer experience a little bit through more consultancy with the help of the tools that were on the market. And later on, that kind of like transformed being Feedbackly as a product and as a service. So it kind of like started from my own problem, trying to find this kind of solution from the market, and realizing that there is nothing such like this on the market that could actually help me in an easy and scalable way. At that time, we were quite small. Of course, I would have needed only for the small business, but the same problem just get amplified when the company grows. So so through that, we worked like I mentioned, a little bit more as a consultancy and consulting, where we actually where I actually had the chance to work with tens of companies and hundreds of companies with their customer experience. So that's basically kind of like where the idea grew up from my own problem, and then formed being Feedbackly. I think it was 2016. Now when Feedbackly as we are was started. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and transformed into more of a tech company than a consulting. So basically the point is that all of our customers are using Feedbackly, and if they're using Feedbackly, then we're more supporting them with everything else. So we're first and foremost more a tech company.
That's really interesting. I think in so many of the companies that have become really household names started with, I have this problem. How do I find a solution for this problem? Is I'll just create it. It doesn't exist. I'll just make it. So that's really cool. Okay, so we talked about the story, so we sort of covered a bit about the investors, a bit about the company. Is there a sort of short-term goal, or what's the main short-term goal that you can see coming for the company?
Yeah. So there are a couple of themes that basically what we look for. Of course, looking for widening the clientele and client base. That's our first and foremost most important target to get that nudge for that growth. So that has to be there all the time for any I would say any tech company. But kind of like looking beyond that, how that's going to happen. So of course, driving that EVI framework, which we've seen that it works.
Yep.
So looking to implement that with as many companies as possible is definitely one thing. Then the second thing is building the partner network so that we can further accelerate that growth, but also looking for different kind of networks through our investors to go for. So we're just finalizing actually one of our smaller investment rounds, but there's just a little bit room inside there. So if someone is interested in learning more, just reach out to me. But basically that is, of course, the next growth funding is coming up in some time, of course, because we want to grow even further. Yep. So that's definitely one of the next steps also along the way in the near future.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anything else that you think that we forgot? I think we have a pretty good idea, but I just wanted to ask you before we summarize and close.
No, I think we've covered most of the things, and as I usually like to say, that you can always reach out to me and ask those things, and happy to go deeper or offer more information. Everything can be found online, and all of the information will be delivered afterwards. So happy to answer any more questions that might come up. But I think we covered pretty much all the important points today.
Okay, so if you could summarize in an elevator pitch format, can you tell us why potential investors or partners should be interested in Feedbackly?
Sure. With Feedbackly, basically, we are molding that change that it is happening on the market, whether we want it or not. It's already there. It's not just coming. It's already there. And we're really much tapping into that opportunity for those companies. And then secondly, we have those tools that what a company needs to actually do that. And we also have some priority over those. So for example, the emotional experience concept of emotional value index, we own that concept. We are the only one on the market who kind of combines that with the customer journey, who is able to really quantify that ROI for those people who actually want to understand their customers. And we try to stay on top of the market all the time. So I think those are one of the biggest deals that what we have at Feedbackly, which makes us different, what makes us interesting. And also on top of that, it's really easy to get started and really easy to work with partners. So there's a huge clientele and sales potential in the future as well, which of course always interests any investor on how they could also help us grow. So I think that as a very kind of like a short summary on what we just talked about, why for example we would be a good fit for any investor.
Wonderful. Well, there you have it. Make sure you check out Feedbackly's website to learn more about their progress and their products. Thank you so much, Jaakko, for coming on. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. So I look forward to chatting soon. Well, people, that is it for today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Reach out on our socials to chat. And if you found this useful, please like, subscribe, and share. You can visit our website for additional information on this particular topic, and every other resource. You'll find the links below. See you next time.